So I have a card for today from Colette Baron Reed's The Dream Weavers. And it feels appropriate somehow. Even wisdom needs to rest. Even wisdom needs to rest. And the crux of it is giving yourself time to slow down and dream, allowing ideas to form without forward movement, a necessary natural circle of downtime. Sometimes you are exposed to so much information, it overwhelms you. You aren't able to translate the knowledge into wisdom because you don't find the time for integration. Life is busy, and you may even be at a time in your life when you're working so hard to achieve your goals, you think you're not allowed to take a break. What would happen if you said no to something or someone? So now is a time for dreaming, for downtime, for slowing your pace and taking things off your plate. Make time to take a vacation or vacation in your schedule. Remember, even wisdom needs to rest. Even wisdom, even information needs to rest. So a check-in. How is everybody or anybody doing with the class so far? Or what you might need to know? I know I have a question from Jackie I'll address in a moment, but I wanted to see how you all are doing. Are you being able to integrate the information, or is it overwhelming? Is it practical? Is it fun? Is it boring? What's your experience of it? Does it make life real for you?
Sondra, I actually feel tremendous gratitude for your life's work.
Mhm.
I feel so impressed, and I also feel inspired because it makes me think of everyone here being able to probably do the same from their own vantage point. What would it mean to actually gather all the gifts of a lifetime and present it to a circle of women, especially? And so I feel very inspired from that perspective because I know I can come touch in to your sort of treasure trove in the library. And I feel so comforted by that. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Judith. Yeah. Yeah, we all have gifts to share. And whether we feel we want to be visible or not, it's like, how do we share them? Or do we share them in our everyday life? We share them in our everyday life in real time. So I appreciate you, Judith. Yeah. So Jackie asked a question, an email the other day, which I wasn't let's see, did I write it down? Yeah. Which comes first, happy cells or thoughts and activities that make you happy? And when I read that, at first I said, I don't have a clue. Who knows? And I always meditate before class. So what came up in the meditation was it's not linear time. We're in a quantum reality. Quantum meaning we go back and forth between solid, between particle and wave, always in the moment, microscopic moments, instantaneous moments of change. So if I think happy thoughts, will my cells be happier? It's all the same. It's not, if only I thought happy thoughts, then my cells become happy. Your cells may be happy before you have the thought. So I know I never talk about quantum physics because I don't quite really understand it in a practical way. But to look at it, it's like, well, the quantum science says there's no time is not linear. What we focus our attention on is what is real to us. So if I'm focusing my attention on my cells, then they're the ones that are giving me the messages of happiness. If I focus my attention on my mind, then that's either taking me into happiness or wherever else it might go. So to look at, I mean, and I'm just kind of making this up because it's what came in meditation, looking at it's not linear time. People, healers are telling us, for always, it's not linear time. It's simultaneous. Healing can happen simultaneously, spontaneously. If we look at the 2,000 or so cases that Brendan Regan at Noetic Sciences accumulated on spontaneous remissions in cancer, how did that happen? Some of it was just like this, and some of it was over a period of time. So I guess my prescription is for me, what can I do? And I'm not saying I always do it. I wish I did. Um, what can I do that brings me to a state of more peace than more angst? Just to, I don't want to be in angst all the time. It doesn't feel good. It's not good for my health. And what brings me into, it's interesting. One of the things I talk about today in the class is think with your heart. So as I was meditating on the class, it's like, well, what does think with your heart really mean? Going into my head and hearing all this. And it was, oh, not thinking with your head and your intellect, but thinking with your heart. And what came to mind is, for me personally, I'd been thinking about not going to my son's for Thanksgiving in LA because last year was really stressful for me. And 30 people at dinner, and that's not my idea of Thanksgiving. I want my little intimate family. And I was still in my reclusive mode from COVID. Hadn't gotten out of that yet. So I wasn't ready to be with a lot of people. I just wanted to be with my close family. So I've been thinking up until yesterday and up until this morning, maybe I won't go because it's uncomfortable for me. And when I went to, well, what's thinking with my heart? I wasn't even focusing on that question, but what was thinking with my heart mean? It's like, no, you go for your kids. It's not about you. You go for love. You go for what's loving. And it's like, oh, okay. you know, okay, thank you. Thank you, heart. You know more than I do. So to really, I know somewhere I've read, what would love do? So maybe that's the place to think from. What would love do? And I wasn't even aiming for, I didn't even pose the question. It was just, what does thinking with your heart mean? Is it heart math work or is it more than that? So it's like, no, you come from love. You come from love. Yeah, yeah. So any other insights, questions before we get on with the slideshow? Anya, unmute,
I'm
unmute.
unmute.
Yeah, there you
Okay,
are.
thank you. I'm very grateful for participating and accessing your wisdom as well as the participants' wisdom. Two things. I took a walk on Sunday, and a friend of mine indicated that she's 60 years old and she anticipated living another 15 years. And I asked her why 15. And she believes very strongly that her family genetic situation contains a lot of cancer, and a lot of her relatives died from cancer at different times in different places. And I thought of self-fulfilling prophecy. What does that mean? I listened to her and my heart got so sad to think that she anticipates living until 75. Perhaps, I just turned 78, and my life and my brain, the neuroplasticity in my brain, there is a revolution going on inside of me as I access your type of wisdom as well as other people's wisdom. And I am being majorly inspired and going to the positive. And so I look at self-fulfilling prophecy. I look at it in my understanding of quantum time, linear movement. I've heard these terms bandied about. I'd love to learn more. So, self-fulfilling prophecy. This beautiful woman, 60 years old, believes that she's going to live only till 75. And there are so many revolutions medically now that certainly can enhance a life to longer. Anyway, that's what I thought about you and this question of self-fulfilling prophecy. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya, for bringing that up. It's like, well, do we make things happen?
Exactly.
I know I have a friend who I met when he was 50, and he kept on saying he was going to die at 62 because his mother died at 62 and he had her genes. Well, he's now 89. So I think we can influence that, but then it looks like we have more power, more perceived power. Did I cause the cancer? Did I make the genes express this? And let's say Jackie was having trouble. And looking at that kind of reality, my one experience around self-fulfilling prophecy is I can remember when I was learning to ski, and when I was really afraid and said I couldn't do it, I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I let go of the fear and I'm here to learn, then it was easy being on the slopes. But as soon as I went into my mind of, oh my God, I can't do it, that's what happened. So I don't know if your friend is going to choose to go when she's 75. Um, it's a mystery, isn't it? I mean,
It,
one of my emails has 88 on it, and I often wondered where 88 came from. And I know my grandmother died at 88. So I was wondering, was I putting 88 because I thought I was going to die at 88? And I'm going to be 85 in a few weeks. Like, well, I don't want to die at 88. Should I change my email? Where did that number come from? So we can make something as real as we choose to in a way. But I think there's always the mystery. What does the mystery have to, the mystery of the divine? What's the role of the divine? Our mind isn't prima. We may think it is. So I don't know if that was an answer. I know, try not to worry about your friend, but she may not also be happy with her life. So it's like to look at, you know, I think it's always a question. Are we happy with our lives? Do we think we have a legacy? Do we think there's something we have to do? I mean, it's a question I've been asking for maybe 35 years. What's mine to do? What do I have to do? In fact, it brings up, last week I was really very flattered when some of you asked me to do 8 weeks. And I was trying to figure out how to do that because I love to teach and I'd love to continue sharing. And then with this full moon, the information, the full moon, and everything else that was coming to mind, I am going to be 85. And how much energy do I really have? And how much cognitive abilities do I still have? And I know I have to write a book that I've been trying on and off for maybe the past decade to do. It's like, it's now or never. And I don't multitask. So I put everything in a class and don't do anything else. And I'm sorry for all the typos in the handout. Um, so I just looked at my reality. Yeah, I'd like to do another session a day, one more time after the 4, where we could just ask questions if you want. But I have to be realistic for my own energy right now. It's like, I don't know how much time I do have, and I've been putting off the book. And since I made the decision, writing has come to me, which is okay. Okay, it's your time. Just get on with it. Get on with it. For any of us, what do we think we have to do while we're still here? It's a gift we've got, the gift of the divine energy. How do we use it? How do we use it? We're not going to be here forever. I mean, it's nice to think we are, but that's not a reality. So, okay, how many days do I have left really? That was another consideration for Thanksgiving. This could be my last Thanksgiving. I don't know. I would like to have I would like to have at least 5 more. I'd like 15 more years, but I don't in good health. So it's all a mystery, isn't it? That's why being in it now, this moment is what counts because it's really all we got. So thanks for that question because it's good food for thought.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else in comments, input?
Do you mind if I comment on that, Anya? I just kind of wonder, I've been in that situation before where for me, I tuned into what was coming up for me was a sense of helplessness. Like I wanted to find the magic prompt or the phrase or the attitude that would help my friend become interested in like Sondra's work or the possibility that maybe that's just not fated. Maybe there's maybe she'll be surprised one day and discover she's the what do you call it? The 100th monkey. She's the one that's going to turn the key and stop the cycle because that's part of the magic, I think, that's alive right now for many of us. I just wonder what came up for you in that. How did you respond? Or is there something like, how do I inspire her?
I recognize that I was sad in anticipation of losing her in 15 years or whatever. However, I had to look at my tendency to be what I call my Mrs. Jesus Christ role, saving people. And at this point of time, I know I can't save anyone. I can hardly save myself. And that's saving myself means staying in the present moment, living to the max now as I'm given the divine breath to continue. So I really looked at That's her journey. Whatever her journey is, who am I to think I know what's better for her and could potentially interrupt her journey? I can't. I can't. And what I can only do is be a witness and send, and as Sondra was saying, whenever I approach her, what does my heart say to her? What does my heart want to offer her in the conversations that we may be blessed with in the future? So I just pull away and just witness myself in relationship to other souls and send love as I'm capable.
Great. Thank you both. Thank you both. That's really, really rich wisdom. Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing and asking. Yeah. So are we ready for a slideshow? Okay. Let's get to, where is, oh, here's share. Share. Can you see this slide?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So here we get to see our stretched out cells on stardust. So I know I keep on changing the focus of the class, but I think this one was energy. They will all come together ultimately. So when we look at energy, what does that really mean? We've got this famous equation from Einstein: energy equals mass by some times some made up number. I don't know where this number came from. But so energy is the same as matter, regardless of how we read this equation. And we've got many different kinds of energy: emotional energy, love energy, stress energy. Today, my focus is going to be basically on cellular energy and the body and stress. And I'm encouraging you, and again, with everything I teach, I encourage you to take it in also as metaphor, as something poetic, as not solid, but maybe more, what is energy to you? I have a friend who's a physician, says all his patients come in with their complaint is no energy. So is that where we are with our own energy, or is it sluggish? Is it loving? Let's see where we go with it. So energy is vibration. And I'm bringing this into the story because I want, here we go with think with your heart, but also, since it's vibration, to think of our cellular stuff, that cytoskeleton, that strings and struts and tubes that vibrates, just to be able to think that at a cellular level, we're vibrating. At an energetic level, what we're hearing, what we're seeing, that's all energy as well. So to really be able to take that in, and what am I sending out to other people? What am I taking in? So it's all energy. I can't overdo that idea of, let's see how we bring up and enhance our own heart energy, our own heart wisdom, our own love energy. So this is a drawing of a mitochondria. It's really a very strange shaped part of our cells. And it's the mitochondria, I'll talk more about in the next slide. It's the mitochondria that produces cellular energy called ATP. So this is what ATP looks like through the microscope. And I want to go to let me go back here. So for our cells to make energy, ATP, We need oxygen. We need our breath. We need what's the food we're eating. Basically, it gets broken down to sugar or fat, and that's then used as the molecule that's turned into energy. That during that process, we need the B vitamins. We know CoQ10, coenzyme Q10, and the minerals for sure we need magnesium and iron, although there's a lot more here. And just to think about it, if we even can make it a reality, every cell, so we've got trillions of cells. Every cell needs to make about 1 billion molecules of ATP every minute. All this is going on without our knowing about it. Unless we're always tired, then we're aware we don't have enough energy. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. This is another drawing of a mitochondria, and it's a very complex process, which I'm not going to go into. But way back when, with the early cells weren't able to use oxygen in the environment. It was toxic to the cells. This is the way the story goes. But there was a bacteria present who was able to detoxify the oxygen and turn it into energy. And so these bacteria, so what we've learned about the unique origins of our mitochondria, they didn't start with the original cell. They basically married a bacteria and they collaborated in partnership. And we have physical evidence that the mitochondria is different than the rest of the cell. In all of our cells, the DNA is in a spiral and a helix. In the mitochondria, the DNA is in a circle. The fats in the membrane of the mitochondria are totally different than the fats in the membrane of our cells. So there's some physical evidence that said this didn't come from us. And what's even more interesting is we only inherit the DNA of mitochondria from our mothers, because the mitochondria is in the cell. When the sperm unites with the egg, it's only injecting its tail. It's not in, and its tail might have a few mitochondria, but not very many. So sometimes I like to ask, I don't know if it's a useful question, how like our mother's energy is ours, but just to recognize in the real world, these have a very different source, an origin than the rest of our cells. I don't know if that's useful or not, but it's interesting. So if we think of what do we need energy for? Well, our cells need energy to recycle the toxins that are in the cell. They need energy to make new proteins. They need energy to make new cells. They need energy when we're talking, when we're moving, when we're breathing. We need energy. And so what happens during stress is, we all know the term the fight or flight response. So during the fight or flight, during the stress response, physically what happens, our body tenses. Usually we may clench our jaws or our hands. The temperature of our hands gets cold. If you're stressed, you might be aware that the temperature of your hands is different than the rest of you, even though the room is warm. And why does that hand temperature change? Because circulation changes. So fight or flight is to enable us to fight the assailant or to run away. Sometimes freeze, but that is not often the option for a lot of us. If you've ever seen rabbits get stressful, they will freeze in place. But just to look at, physically, we've got these changes going on in our body. We're tensing, our breathing becomes shallow, or we're holding our breath. the blood circulation is changing to fuel the big muscles so that we can get away. And that's using up the energy, especially for the muscles to do their work. That's using up a lot of energy. And if we feel fatigued and there's not a physical reason, it could be because of stress. And I could put it in the library. When I teach a long class, I'm always asking people to keep an energy map, which you can do. Track your energy during the day. Is there a time of the day that your energy is better? Is there a time of a day when your energy is low? And in some research, it shows usually when our energy is low, our tension is high, which means we're not making as much ATP as we need, which also means at that time of high tension, low energy, we're not making good choices. It may be when we go to grab a donut. We're also not having good communications with other people. It may be when we're most argumentative. So like at 4 o'clock, you may discover that, oh, this is my most tension. I'm tired during that time of day. What do I do to release my stress? So to recognize the first thing you can do to release your stress is to just go back to your breath, to breathe, to connect, because the breath is what brings oxygen to the cells. So, as I mentioned before, how many molecules of ATP our cells need, just think about it. Every day, our body needs to be able to regenerate 2 to 3 pounds of ATP. So how does it do it in an effective way? So this is the biochemical equation. ATP loses one of its phosphates, and becomes this ATP. I'm not going into that whole thing, other than letting you know we have a molecule in our body called creatine phosphate, which is this beautiful molecule through the microscope. And it's what stores energy. So when our depleted ATP needs to be regenerated, it calls on all the creatine phosphate in our cells, the storage molecule, and is able to regenerate. So in the design of these cells, it's an incredibly efficient system. Just to give you a vision of what we think happens when we're relaxed, for every molecule of glucose. So say you ate a piece of toast this morning, and that toast is carbohydrates, it's starch, and the starch is broken down to glucose. So and I don't know how many molecules of glucose or starch are in a piece of toast, but for every molecule of glucose, when we're relaxed, 36 molecules of ATP are made from that one molecule. When we're stressed, only 2 molecules are made. So if you feel that you're tired all the time, and I know I feel tired a lot, I don't sleep well. I feel tired a lot. Is it stress? Is it something physical going on? Is it the diet? It's really be able to look at. Is there a diagnosis for not being able to generate enough energy? Is there something wrong with your mitochondria? So not to look at all those things. I think for me, the first thing is, well, how do I release the stress in my body? What can I do that will bring me more energy? And the whole idea of stress, it's not an event outside, it's how we perceive the event. Is it, oh, I'm afraid of going to Thanksgiving because I don't want to get on the plane, I don't want all the people, blah, 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 blah. That I'm creating stress. It's like, what if I'm thinking about all the possibilities of that event and just using up energy. Because, one of the themes I have started with this class is the body, the brain, our cells don't know the difference between what's real or imagined. So if we're imagining something as stressful, the body, the brain, the cells respond as if it's a threat, as if it's you need to fight for survival. So I know you probably saw this slide last week. Worry is a total waste of imagination. And when I've asked people, do they use their imagination or visualize, they usually say no. But it's like, well, do you worry? Well, we all do at some point or another. Not saying that's something you shouldn't do. To be conscious of it, it becomes a waste of energy if you live in a state of worry. So why stress becomes a major issue is at the cellular level. So acute stress, you need to stop your car because somebody ran in front of it. You dealt with not hitting a person or a cat who ran in front of your car. That's acute stress. Everything you needed for survival is turned on. And then the automatic response is to go into relaxation. Automatic, physiologically, we go into relaxation. And what the human mind often does, they keep on reliving. We keep on reliving. Oh, what if I hit that cat or dog or person that walked in front of my car? What if, what if, what if? And that worry is using up your energy. And when that happens, when we have less energy, our cells don't work as effectively. Our immune system gets out of balance. We might have increased infections depending on how your immune system is influenced. We have increased inflammation, which is a factor in almost every disease of humans. DNA repair, which I don't know how I even want to talk about that. DNA repair, our genes make mistakes and the repair slows down, so we're more likely to have more mistakes. We also have memory loss, mood swings, poor coping skills, and GI upset. So see, these are some of the things when that stress response stays on. And I want to emphasize that we can keep that stress response on all the time with our worry. So find ways to step out of worry. Let me see where I am in time. Okay, oh, good. So this was an important discovery in the 90s, a new field called psychoneuroimmunology, or PNI, that looks at the role of the psyche, the role of the mind, how it affects the nervous system, and how that affects the immune system. And way back when, I went to a lecture at JFK University, which is not too far from me, and Jean Achterberg was talking. And some of you may be familiar with Jean. She was probably one of the first people in body-mind medicine and was definitely a pioneer in using visualization, especially in the cancer treatment. So she is really an important teacher in this field. And she was teaching at JFK, and at the time she lived in New Mexico, I think. And the head of the holistic health said he wished she could teach there at psychoneuroimmunology. And I was so brazen at that time. I said, well, I could. So I ended up teaching, probably the first time I taught psychoneuroimmunology. Brazen because I thought I could teach it. What did I know about? I knew about the immune system. I had done a postdoc in immunology. And I thought, oh, psychoneuro is easy, right? Yeah, right. I'm still learning it. How many years later? 30, 40? But the field started from a very interesting study. Some of the interesting research, especially in the beginning days, came from psychologists, not from immunologists at all, or not from brain scientists at all. So a psychologist, Robert Ader, was curious not about the immune system at all. He was curious about what conditioned people who get cancer treatment. The cancer treatment, often they're taking a chemotherapy drug that makes them sick to their stomach, makes them nauseous all the time, and they don't want to eat, which creates more of a problem. And there's certain foods they may not want to eat. So he was curious about what conditioned these people to be triggered by a taste of, say, the medicine, to not want to ever eat again or eat that food again. So he set up an interesting study. You know, a lot of research, it's the accidents of the research that give us the amazing outcomes. So he has set up a study. Do you all remember Pavlov? Does the name Pavlov ring a bell? So he set up the study based on Pavlov's behavioral sensory conditioning with animals. Just to remind you, what Pavlov showed was when a dog sees a piece of meat, that's an automatic physiologic response is for the dog to salivate. There is no relationship to the sound of a bell and salivation. So ringing a bell won't do anything to a normal dog. And in Pavlov's study, every time he showed the dog meat, he rang a bell that over time the dog was triggered to salivate purely at the ringing of the bell. And that's one of the reasons why I talk about sensory conditioning, anchoring, to be able to really use it to train our physiology to do what we want. This was the first thing that really got me into the senses, the power of the senses. And so what Ader did, he set up this study with mice, and the unique taste he gave to mice was saccharine sweetened water. And the unpleasant event he gave to the mice was an injection of a chemotherapy agent that made the animals sick to their stomach. So kind of mirroring what happens with a cancer patient. So what he saw over a period of time, a big surprise, was that the animals that drank the most saccharine sweetened water started dying of infection. And he said, what's going on? Saccharin doesn't do anything to create increased risk for infection. So he went to one of his colleagues, Nicholas Cohen, who was an immunologist. And Cohen asked him, what drug did you give the animals? Cytoxan, is chemotherapy agent. And so Cohen says, yeah, but that drug also suppresses the immune system. You know, until probably Ader's work, we always felt the immune system was outside of control of anything other than the immune system. It was its own player. So the question then was, well, had he conditioned the animal's immune system with the drug, because the animals that drank the most Cytoxan had compromised immune systems? So that brings us to the power of being able to use sensory conditioning. We're conditioned in a lot of ways. We probably just don't even know it. So here we've got an automatic physiological response, the immune system. And some of the first studies in the field were looking at, it's one of the reasons I encourage you. Well, relaxation is also being in a state of relaxation is also an automatic physiologic response. So can we condition being in a state of relaxation, ringing a bell, or every time we're in a relaxed state, or eating a mint? I know Gene Achterberg has suggested, well, what if we, every time we had to take a chemotherapy agent or every time we needed to take a drug, could we pair that, say, with a mint and over time decrease the amount of drug we needed to get the same effect? I'm not suggesting you get rid of all your drugs if you're taking them, but just to recognize there's a possibility of being able to condition the effect for a while with any of the five physical senses. So in conditioning, it could be relaxation. I want to condition how good I feel after I've exercised. How do I pair that good feeling? What do I compare it with? Am I touching my heart? Just find, and in the playbook for this week is, can you set up a conditioning experiment for yourself? So it's like anything in training the brain, it requires repetition. And one of the things that does happen in conditioning, over time, that dog wouldn't, if it doesn't see meat, over time, his salivation would go into a state of extinction, meaning that he'd no longer salivate at the ringing of the bell. So that happens too when we turn off, when we're no longer putting the condition stimulus with the automatic physiologic response. I had a student who was able to stop taking his homeopathic drugs simply with a smell. So anything is possible, but we need to also be cautious and not just take my words and get off of insulin if you needed it. So the five physical senses, in case you don't remember: sound, what do we hear? Sight, touch, taste, sound, touch, taste, movement. Okay, not, I'm forgetting one, I know. Sound, hearing, sight, touch, and the kinesthetic sense, knowing where we are in space. So if we're using sound, we recognize the whole body is being able to respond and to look at. So a basic practice, I know I have it here, a basic practice, not just with sound, is going out and taking a walking meditation and seeing if you could take a walking meditation without labeling anything, just being in the present moment, just being conscious of, oh, it's beautiful. Do I need to say it's beautiful, or can I be in the presence of how beautiful it is? So I'm focusing again on what we talked about in neuroplasticity. We need to pay attention. We need to focus on what we want to learn, what's our end result. And we need to keep on repeating. And way the brain works, I mean, it's like we learn to play the piano. This is a good example of not just conditioning. If we learn to play the piano, our muscles are trained, our brain is changed. But over time, that's probably not a good example. Over time, we don't play as well. We never lose the learning through our body, like with playing the piano, but we lose the facility of being able to do it really well. We have to retrain our brain, retrain our hands. It's like riding a bike. We never really forget how to ride a bike. We just may not be good at it after we've stopped for 20 years. And reward is a reward doing it is important. Sometimes we need to reward ourselves with a piece of chocolate cake. Sometimes we need to, if I do this exercise for a week, I'm going to buy myself a new plant. Sometimes we need a real reward, something tangible, not just the reward of doing it. But we know there's something called I actually took the slide out. The body sensation hypothesis, going back to the body again, that if we don't feel the reward of sitting and meditating, it just doesn't, I don't feel more relaxed. It's a pain in the butt. If we don't feel the reward of what we're trying to practice, the body sensation hypothesis says, focus on the pleasure. Focus on the pleasure of either doing it, focus on the pleasure of flossing your teeth, whatever exercise you want to include in your life. If you don't feel the benefits of doing it, at least you can feel the sensory pleasure of it once we focus. So once we focus on, wow, my body now knows how to think with its heart. So to look at, since imagination becomes worry, and worry, or can become worry, worry contributes to more stress, more angst. How do we shift our imagination? I think I put this in another slideshow. Albert tells us that imagination is more important than knowledge, that embraces everything we can possibly know. So to really be able to use it in a positive way, and one of the ways often I use it in a class is with guided imagery and visualization. And when we do those practices, so here we're engaging the imagination. You may do it as when you meditate, when you paint or draw, or when you move. What images are you bringing into the story? And if you recall with guided visualization, they, like I did with the gratitude, use all the senses, feel it, smell what happened. What do you see? What is a touch? The more senses we bring to using our imagination, the stronger it is. Remember the places in the brain where the senses are active. So senses enhance imagination. It enhances neuroplasticity. It enhances the brain. And although we call it guided imagery, in fact, Jean, who wrote the first one, probably the first book on guided imagery, didn't see. She didn't see things at all. She heard. So you don't need to be visual. And if I'm ever doing a guided visualization in the class, you don't need to follow my words. I know I didn't say that last time. You don't need to follow my words. If your own images come to mind, that's more powerful than what I'm saying. And if your own images come to mind, they don't have to be biologically accurate. In fact, I will share. When I was teaching over at JFK, one of the classes I taught was stress management. And the students wanted to know, well, what really works for reducing stress? And I came up with a couple ideas. I hadn't been working one-to-one with people, so I didn't really know. I just knew what was reported in the scientific literature. One was progressive relaxation by Edmund Jacobson, who saw that he was a physician, and he saw that his patients with anxiety would come in and being really tense. And so he came up with progressive relaxation, which was going through the body and tensing and then relaxing each muscle set. And that was one of the first stress management practices taught, probably in the 90s clinically. And the other was Herb Benson, who also a physician in Harvard, a cardiologist, and he reasoned we didn't really know at that time, this was in the probably 80s, we didn't know there was a relaxation response. He intuited, so a lot of science comes from intuition. He intuited since there was a stress response, there had to be a relaxation response. And working with his cardiology patients, he saw that they were also anxious and stressed. And he came up with, you could, I didn't put anything about his work in the library. And he came up with a relaxation response. And the relaxation response was an easy guided imagery to remember feeling peaceful. And sometimes people couldn't feel peaceful. What he discovered was in teaching stress management, simply saying a word to yourself, peace, love, something that didn't trigger stress, also turned on the relaxation response. So that's one of the ways the hum works. It's turning on the relaxation response. So you need to we each need to find ways that bring us into a more present moment, a more relaxed moment. Once one size doesn't fit all for everybody, and one thing doesn't fit each one of us all the time. So I'm always saying, you need a medicine bag of tricks. How many tricks are you going to use? So, so I'm going to buy, I know I included way too many slides in here. So smell is the primary sense in relationship to memory. And we can, if we get into fear, I didn't even pay attention to this, thinking about fear of going down to LA. What are familiar smells that can help reduce fearful memories? Because that familiar smell, what comes to my mind is the familiar smell. My mom used to wear Estee Lauder all the time. And if I would remember that smell, it would bring the memory of my mom in a positive way to me. And this morning I have, what is that smell that I have? No, it's amber. So this morning I have on my ledge a little thing of amber. It's like, okay, are you stressed when you teach? Sometimes. Well, just smell the amber. Bring me into a place of being more peaceful and being able to recognize when we're deep breathing that exhalation is turning on the vagal response. We're humming, we're chanting, we're talking, we're singing can bring us into a relaxation response because the vagal is the parasympathetic. Stress is the sympathetic. So everything is in partnership in the body, which is pretty amazing. And a friend of mine was telling me she broke her collarbone and that she was in a lot of pain. And so I remembered this slide that I actually had in the handout. It came from Michael Moskowitz. I know his neuroplastics website isn't as rich as it was a number of years ago, but some of the research shows that the smell of peppermint blocks the pain transmitters. Remember, pain is in the brain. So how do we change the brain from recognizing an experience as painful? I've never tried the smell of peppermint. I have some of the essential oils I could try, but citrus is another one. If you recognize how the sense of smell has been used in department stores, it's been used often to provoke people to buy something, whether it's a smell of cinnamon or something like that. Retailers have discovered if you have an underlying scent, you can get people to buy more things. And so it's to do the same thing for ourselves. What's an underlying scent that keeps you motivated? Is there one that keeps you motivated? And have a little atomizer that's letting the smell go in your house. What keeps you soothed? What releases tension? What brings you pleasure? So think of using your senses for healing, for positive changes in your body. Not always about fixing, but how can I feel good? I mean, I sent this to my friend yesterday, but I realized I've now started experiencing some arthritis in my hands, which makes it my thumbs become really painful. And what I'm going to start doing is I have one of these atomizers. I'm going to start having it send out the smell of that peppermint and see if that helps me. So put your imagination to work. What do you want to see happen in your life, especially on this full moon day? What do you want to see happen? Because as we think about it, I started to mention when I was teaching at a JFK, what did I know about what really worked? What kind of guided visualization or imagination worked? I had decades ago, I had gotten a bout of genital herpes, which cleared up pretty fast. And decades later, I started getting a bout of genital herpes. And it was when I was teaching a distress management class, and I was really pissed. I've got to tell you, it's like, okay, why is this happening decades after the first event? And so I thought, well, what kind of guided visualization can I use? So I came up with my own script and used it. Later, I discovered that the biology I was visualizing was totally wrong. And what I learned more over time about using visualization, our emotional connection to what we're trying to change is probably as important as what we're trying to change. So I had so much anger at getting genital herpes in the first place and then getting it again decades later. That to me was the driving force. What I was visioning biologically was totally wrong, but I didn't know that at the time. When I was just beginning to teach about stress. So you don't have to actually use the correct biology. What's the emotional story you have around it? Just to really be able to look at that. And if you want to use visualization or imagination to be able to change our body, what's the story underneath it? So managing energy, here are a lot of strategies I've probably talked about in the library or in the link to resources. I've got a simple Qigong practice that's 10 minutes that you could learn online to check it out. And I'm going to, okay, I cut out slides this morning. So in energy awareness, this should have been in the first class, to really look at how does my body feel? Are my shoulders up to my ears? What's the temperature of my hands? So yeah, I was encouraging you to, where in your body do you feel joy? But where are you now to recognize that if I'm in a state of stress, what's the temperature of my hands? Are my shoulders? So I recognize that my shoulders were up to my ears as I was talking to you, and my hands are colder than they should be in the room. So once we start really paying attention, we can become aware, oh, I'm feeling some kind of stress. Well, how do we release that stress? How do we go to a place of, okay, lower my shoulders. I should have some smell right here because I'm always in that state of, am I doing a good job, or is my voice right? That kind of stuff. So quickly to understand, I want to include this for one, we got the idea of stress and muscle tension. Sleep deprivation is another way that we are compromised, and I certainly am sleep deprived. And also for people who are taking cholesterol-lowering statins, the cholesterol-lowering statins prevents or slows down the liver from making coenzyme Q10. Remember, that was one of the factors the cells need to make ATP. So if we're on statins, we need to make sure that we're taking supplemental CoQ10. Your doctor may not tell you that. Your doctor may. I know with my mother and my uncle, they were both at the same healthcare system with different physicians. My uncle's doctor told him to take Q10. My mother's didn't. And of course, she wasn't going to listen to her daughter to take Q10. So just to become aware of where some of the drains can be. If you're challenging an illness or pain, that can also be a drain. So if we think about energy drains, it becomes more important to find ways to enhance the energy, to lower stress, to do things that don't deprive you of the energy you need. And I'm sharing this again to remind us of what Buddha said. And in the end, what matters most is how well did you love? How well did you live? How well did you learn to let go? And in psychology, we're always talking about letting go. In the full moon or new moon, we talk about what you need to let go of. And I want to share one of the most profound studies done in medical medicine by James Pennebaker. And Pennebaker showed that if he started with his psych students, if he had them, those two, there were two groups. One just write a journal every day, and the other group write what was most stressful to you for 4 days for 15 or 20 minutes. Your thoughts and feelings about what was most stressful. And over 6 months, they discovered that the students that were writing their thoughts and feelings about a stressful moment used the health services much less. And this got translated into medicine because it was such an effective way of improving people's health. And the one study I will report to you was using people who had immune disorders. They had rheumatoid arthritis, so they had painful arthritis caused by an autoimmune disease. And the other group was people who had asthma, so they had lung function. So here you had two measurable endpoints: less pain, improved lung function. And the question was for these patients, write what is most stressful for you right now, thoughts and feelings, not the story, not the story. And for me, I've done this a number of times, and sometimes I don't last 4 days, but to really look at, is there a benefit? And so yesterday, I wrote what is most shameful for me, my thoughts and feelings about a shame I have in my life, and wrote I just did it yesterday, my thoughts and feelings. And when I finished the 20 minutes, I realized what came out of that was an awareness of forgiveness for myself. That my choices around what has given me shame, my choices were the best ones I could have made. And one of the people in this, what I was writing, was my kid's sort of stepmother. She wasn't married to my ex, but she was there's what I call their stepmother. And I've always had a little bit of stuff around that. And we're friends. So here and we don't talk that often, but here I'm writing this, and I see that I've gotten rid of some of my stuff about this woman. And about an hour later, she calls me. Now, we don't talk to each other very often. So I could share with her what I had written, and she could share with me some of her stuff with me. So it was like seeing real healing from letting go of a story that I no longer needed to hold. So for those of, I know I've seen this in students who've done this writing, sometimes they didn't need to do it for 4 days because it released itself. So finding ways to let go of what isn't serving you is really important. So I'm going to encourage you, cultivate your chi, go learn Qigong from my website or any place. Learn to let go. What are we holding on to that we don't need to hold on to? And if we're holding on, that's stress. The holding on to old stories is stress. So writing it out in a way that isn't the story, but your feelings and thoughts about it can really significantly let it go. Oh, I don't want that one. Um, and I'll read Martha Graham's quote, some of it. There is about your energy, not just this mystical, mysterious cellular energy or chi. There is a vitality, a life force, energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all of time, this expression of energy is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium. It will never exist through any other person, and it will be lost. It is not your business to determine how good it is, nor how valuable, nor how it compares with other expressions. It is your business to keep it yours clearly, directly, to keep the channel open and express your divine energy. Oh, yeah, I wanted to talk about the full moon. I think I've talked too much already. Just the moon taught me to go through, it's okay to go through phases. And the sun taught me no matter how many times you go down, you keep rising. So cosmic energies, I'll talk a little bit more about this next week to look at how the cosmic energies influence us. Full moon, every 29 and a half days, goes from new moon, we can't see it, to the full moon, maximum light. And I didn't know until I taught this sometime in the past year. I didn't know that the light of the moon is actually reflection from the sun. I just thought it was the moon's light. What do I know? And a good Tibetan proverb to keep in mind. The secret to living well and longer is eat half, walk double, laugh triple, and love without measure. And I need to put that laughing baby up in our library. So laugh more. I've discovered I'm laughing more these days. So questions, comments. Oh, it's 12:20. Everything's good? You're going to go balance your energy. You're going to go do something to release your stress. What, uh, Anya?
Just thank you. Just
Oh.
thank you for sharing your mind, the gifts of your mind with to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya. Yeah. Maybe I'll be brave enough to share more of me. I was thinking, would I share the shame? No, not yet. Not yet. The herpes was something I've just been recently able to say. But it's, you know, herpes, genital herpes is supposed to be a lifelong, once you have it, it's that you have it forever. So it relates to your question, Anya, about your friend thinking they're going to die at 75. It's like, well, I don't have it forever. I and when I got it originally, actually from my husband, um, I was a postdoc in immunology. So I was a guinea pig in immunology. And I got it really bad the first time, and it didn't look like I was getting it again sequentially, which is every time you're stressed, you're supposed to get it, according to the story. Um, my gynecologist was an immunologist, so and we were buddies. So he studied my cells. My lymphocytes were no different than anybody else's. My immune system was no different than anybody else's who kept on getting it. So we weren't even thinking about mind in those days. God, that was a long time ago. The 70s, we weren't thinking about that. But to look at, yeah, uh, I'm supposed to have it all the time. And I'm certainly stressed a lot. I've been stressed a lot, and it hasn't gotten triggered. I don't think that one visualization did the job, but it must have. Um, and it was totally inaccurate biologically. So why I'm saying this is I had so much emotion in the story, so much emotion of one being so angry at getting it from my ex-husband, wasn't ex then, going towards being ex, and then getting it again from a lover, getting it triggered again from a lover. Again, so much anger, so much emotion. That was what was triggering to me the response, not the pictures. And I know when Jean Achterberg was writing about imagery, and I've read a lot of her stuff. She was doing it all with cancer patients. She says what worked was there. You had to be relaxed if you were doing a visualization, but what worked was the emotional counterpart to the story. So for any of us, if we can come to that place, it's like, what's the emotional counterpart when my thumbs start getting painful? I don't know yet. I haven't tuned in enough. This is new. But to look at what's my emotional story underneath it. And I don't know if that would come out if you were doing the Pennebaker work, which to me was profound, that writing for 4 days, 15 to 20 minutes, the people had improved lung function over 6 months. They had decreased pain over 6 months. They carried it out only 6 months because that's how long they had funding for. So to me, that's pretty amazing medicine. And I rarely use it for myself, although it's interesting. I wanted to include it in the class because I don't always include it in the class, and it's useful. It's part of to me, the medicine tricks. Um, what do I need in my medicine bag? Ways of letting go of fear, ways of not being in the present moment. We each have, that's a good question for each of us. What's the medicine you need? What's most important for you? You know,
Do you mind if I ask a technical question?
no, I don't promise
I'm
answer.
really following you. I'm really with you, and I really, really appreciate this. And I was hospitalized with Epstein-Barr
Mm.
when I was a teenager, and they gave me Tylenol every 2 hours, which kind of put it in remission. But I was just wondering, technically, why do they say that lysine helps when you have herpes?
Uh, Lysine is an amino acid, and I don't know if lysine, I should know. I don't know if lysine does something to the herpes virus. I'll have to look that one
That's
up.
an interesting question. I just wondered if,
Yeah.
yeah, I just wondered. But I really, really appreciate your vulnerability. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, if something worked, if I can share it, to not say don't take Tylenol. I'm hoping Trump gets sued by Tylenol. Don't make claims. Anne.
I just want to thank you not only for your vast information store, but for your authenticity. It just adds so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So full moon. I'm going to meet you tonight at full moon. We
Looking
live in the
forward to it.
like, yeah, me too. Full moon tonight. It's considered one of the most powerful full moons of the year. It's a super moon, meaning it's huge, bigger than usual. But how do we use that kind of cosmic energy? How do we use it to, even if it's just in our imagination? I used to sit with a friend who lives 1,000 miles away, and we would say, okay, I'm going to meet you at the full moon. And we'd each sit meditating. I don't know what he did, but that's been my full moon experience over the years. Like, yeah, why not? Nothing to lose. Lisa got me meditating. And to be able to recognize the divine in us. I was thinking about the divine energy today. Well, where is it from? I know different cultures give it different names, but there is a divinity in each of us. And I was thinking about in the Jewish religion, which I've been tuned into over these high holidays. The Jewish religion was the first one that had an invisible God. It had no idols, no paintings, no statues. And it's like, well, where did that idea ever come up? That God was invisible. And when I think about that, it's like, well, my work has all been about the invisible. And if I think about us, our divine energy, of course, is invisible. Our cells are invisible. Our thoughts, our emotions are invisible. More of us is invisible than visible. We can see ourselves. So when people say we're godlike, it's like, yeah, I never even thought of that until that moment. We're godlike. Well, so much of us is invisible. We have this body that carries our emotions and our divine spirit. Aren't we lucky? For as long as we've got it. For as long as we've got it, may we keep it in as good shape as it can be. Yeah. Yeah. And on that, I'm going to wish you a beautiful week. See what you can tune into in terms of your history.
Thank you.
Jackie? Okay. You're welcome.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Have a beautiful full moon night. See you next week. Have a good one. Tune in. Tune in.
Tune in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.